record in the Sesmas matter, everybody necessary is present, including the Sesmas, or out of the presence of the jury. Counsel, anything we need to address on the record before we bring the jury in?
Yes, Your Honor. Yesterday, the state had State's Exhibit Number 3, which was an axon video of Officer Jordan.
Yes.
The sound portion of that did not play. After the session was over, we discovered what the problem was, and it is working fine. Because the jury will be taking that back to the jury room with them, and if they choose to play it, it will play. We believe it would be a confrontation issue unless we play it again in open court with the defendant present. So we are going to ask to be allowed to do that before we put on a...
We can have Officer Jordan back again?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Smart?
Judge, on the one hand, it seems cumulative, and on the other hand, I understand the constitutional issue.
No concern, no objection.
I don't object to it.
All right.
Other than that, thank you. Other than that, I believe we're...
The first witness was going to be Dr. Kipper. I know the court wanted to hear from him as to the 3 photos. We have other persons to read on.
Yes. Bring the doctor in.
The song for the testimony you're about to give in the case now hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, yes.
I will note through the record also that interpreter Ms. Doolittle was present as well to assist Ms. Sesmas.
Doctor, we're in a hearing outside the presence of the jury. To explain to the court the 3 physical exhibits we're going to move to admit. First of all, have you, you're the one who conducted the autopsy of the body of Laura Barker, is that correct?
Yes.
And during the course of that autopsy, staff from the Forensic Science Center took a host of photos of the body, the injury, etc. Is that correct?
Correct.
Augmented by photos pardon me, taken by a CSI from the Wichita Police Department, correct?
Correct.
And from that large number of photographs, you have singled out 3 photographs that you believe would assist you in your presentation to the jury later this morning. Is that right?
Correct.
I believe what's been marked the state's exhibit 115 is really the only objection. Is that correct, counsel?
Yes, Judge, there are 3, and I think 115 is the extreme close-up of the gunshot head injury one.
I'll show you states 115, Doctor. Do you recognize the image depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And as opposed to 114, which shows a picture of Ms. Abarca, her face or upper shoulders, as well as the injury that's depicted in detail, and more of a close-up in 115. Why is 115 helpful for you in explaining your findings to the jury?
It's a closer-up shot of the wound. It demonstrates the nature of the injury, which supports that it's a contact gunshot wound.
Nature of the injury, what is it about 115 that you see far more clearly than in 114 that'll help you explain to the jury what the nature of the injuries are that tell you this was a contact wound?
You can more clearly see the lacerations surrounding the entrance wound, as well as a hemicircumferential soot collar superiorly to the wound.
Starting with the irregular pattern, some might call it a common language star-shaped pattern, or a stellite, I think is how it's referenced in your...
Yeah, we use the term stellate.
Stellate, excuse me. And that is indicative of a contact wound?
Correct.
Then you talked about a circumference, a semi-circumference superior to the entry wound itself of soot. What's that mean?
Basically what it means is while the muzzle of the gun was pressed against the skin, there wasn't a complete seal on that upper part, and some of the gases escaped, which deposited the soot on the skin.
So by looking at that particular photograph, you can show the jury that the bottom let's use a clock face from 9 to, excuse me, from 3 to 9, going with the clockwise, there's no soot there, indicating to you what?
That in that area, the muzzle is firmly pressed against the skin.
But from 9 to 3, we see a ring, semicircle of soot, telling you that the muzzle was not firmly planted against the skin of the victim,
Yes,
telling you that it's a contact wound.
yes.
And that better articulates or shows rather to the jury why you reached this conclusion.
Correct.
Nothing else for the purposes of this picture on here?
Mr. Smart?
Nothing, Your Honor.
And Doctor, just so I'm perfectly clear, you believe that while it's possible to explain your opinion to the jury using only Exhibit 114, a slightly further away picture of the wound in the forehead, you think the jury would be in a better position to understand your testimony if Exhibit 115, the close-up of the wound, was also able to be shown to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
On that basis, I will find that the inclusion of 115 is likely to help the jury understand the doctor's testimony, which is the ultimate purpose of it. So allow 115 as well.
I understand we're going to show the video from yesterday first, so I'll ask the doctor to step down.
We're not going to have the officer for that, correct?
That's correct.
Are we ready for the jury, counsel?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Jury, bring the jury in, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
I know you were here on time, and I know we're starting a little later than indicated, but while you were in the jury room, we were taking care of some of those necessary but inconvenient legal matters that must be taken care of out of your presence. One of which is counsel agreed to replay that Axon video you saw yesterday during the testimony of Officer Jordan, but for some reason they couldn't show the audio, couldn't play the audio, only saw the visual. To avoid any potential legal issues, they're going to rectify that issue where now the audio is able to be heard. So they're going to replay that in the entirety, both visual and audio, because you will have it as an exhibit. Right, is the state prepared to do that now?
We are not. The first 30 seconds will not have audio. That's how long the video goes back before the real audio kicks in.
I'm glad you told me to know, Warner, about the representation that you fixed the audio. We'll see.
Thank you. advised, I have not found no weapons so far. They said she just had a child, so I haven't seen the child either.
Video's off.
Just for the record, the audio did work.
All right. Does either side wish officer, or former officer, George to be called for any purposes of further examination relative to the audio portion we've now heard?
No.
All right. Next witness for the state, please. In case the jury is uncertain about it, the interpreters, even though we're having different ones at each session, are under a continuing oath. So I'm not going to have them given it each time. They are under a continuing oath.
Someone on the testimony you're about to give in the case now hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please tell the jury your name, sir.
Dr. Scott Kipper.
How are you employed?
I'm employed by Sedgwick County as Deputy Coroner/Medical Examiner.
To hold that position, do you have certain education, training, and experience?
Yes.
Let's talk about your education first. How are you educated?
I received my undergraduate degree in biology from St. Louis University. I then received my medical doctorate from St. Louis University School of Medicine. I did a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at Berkshire Medical Center in Massachusetts. And then I did a fellowship in forensic pathology at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque.
After completing all of your education and passing the boards to become a position. What's your first job? Did you come straight to Sedgwick County?
Yes.
Okay. And you have been acting, you said, as a deputy coroner. What does a coroner do?
Coroner basically's job is to determine cause and manner of death in unattended or unnatural, sudden, unexpected deaths.
And to do so, do you examine the body?
Yes.
Is there an element of more than just examination? You have to open up the body at a time, take blood, that sort of thing?
Yes, all of those.
And when you're done conducting that type of an examination, you're called upon, as you said, to make a cause and manner determination?
Correct.
Meaning cause and manner, what's that mean?
The cause of death is exactly that. What is the cause of death? It could be a gunshot wound. It could be coronary artery disease. It could be a stroke. Could be multiple injuries from a motor vehicle accident. So cause of death is what actually caused the death. In the state of Kansas, the manner of death, you have 5 choices. There's natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and undetermined.
And you, if at all possible, are asked to not only determine the cause of death, if it can be determined, but also the manner of death.
Yes.
Do you reduce your findings to writing?
Yes, I do.
Put them in a report that's then submitted to the court?
Yes.
And from time to time, are you called upon to come into a courtroom like this and offer testimony as an expert in the field of forensic pathology to assist juries, or judges for that matter, in their determination of certain cases?
Yes.
And have you been declared an expert in the field of forensic pathology in the district courts of the state of Kansas?
I have.
At this time, Your Honor, I'd ask Dr. Kipper if you're recognized as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Mr. Smart, do you so stipulate, or do wish to word our doctor on his qualifications?
I'm very familiar with Dr. Kipper, and I do stipulate his expertise.
I'll accept Dr. Kipper as an expert in forensic pathology.
Thank you, Judge. Turn your attention to a case number 18-16-3007. Is that a case you're familiar with?
Yes.
And is that a case, or an autopsy rather, that you conducted yourself?
Yes, I did.
On the body of?
Laura Abarca?
27-year-old female?
Yes.
And what date did you conduct that autopsy?
That was November 18th of 2016.
So far as you know, would that have been the day after her body was discovered in her apartment on North Brunswick?
I believe so, yes.
In fact, did you attend or go to the scene yourself where Ms. Abarca was found?
I did.
The autopsy itself, how does that, just walk us through generally, how do you begin an autopsy?
So generally speaking, with an autopsy, the body is received inside of a body bag. We open up the body bag, photograph the body, examine it as we find it. If it's clothed, we'll then undress the body and do an external examination. And basically we're looking for anything out of the ordinary, whether it's a natural condition or some type of injury. We then do an internal examination. We open up the body, we open up the chest and abdomen, we remove the organs one at a time, and we examine them individually. And again, we're looking for anything out of the ordinary, any kind of natural disease, any kind of injury. We then open up the head, remove the brain, and examine the brain. We will usually run toxicology testing on almost everybody. We may do supplemental testing if we feel it's necessary, microscopic slides, vitreous chemistry, things like that. After we get all of our results back, then we generate a report.
You mentioned a term there, toxicology. I think we probably know what you mean, but clinically in the field of forensic pathology, what is a toxicology report and why might that be relevant?
So basically what we do during the autopsy is we'll draw blood, sometimes we'll collect tissue, and send it to the toxicology lab. And basically there they look for common drugs of abuse and other medications that may be in the blood system. They then give us a quantitative level, so a number that represents the concentration of that drug in the blood, which then we may be able to correspond to known ranges of therapeutic or toxic or even fatal.
Having alcohol in your system is one thing, having enough to cause death might be another. That's why they quantify it and give you a range. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
One other thing I meant to ask, you said you went to the scene. Why would you do that? Why not just see the body in the lab?
Generally speaking, when there's a homicide that the body is found at a scene, our investigators will contact us and find out if we feel that it would be helpful to attend the scene. In this particular case, I thought it might be helpful for me to understand exactly what was going on, so that's why I chose to go to this scene.
When you arrived at the scene, had Ms. Abarca's body been manipulated or moved in any way so far as you were told?
I don't believe so.
So she was still on the couch in the seated position?
Yes.
So you've talked about removing the clothing, doing an external examination to begin with. I gather by that you mean looking at the external parts of the body, the skin, the extremities.
Yes.
With respect to Ms. Abarca, after her body was removed from the body bag and identification had been made, did you make note in your report of the external examination and any findings relative to the external examination?
Yes.
Did you find any signs of injury externally to Ms. Abarca?
The only injury that she had was a gunshot wound of the forehead.
Other than, and we'll talk about that in some detail here momentarily, but other than that, extremities, arms, hands, legs, torso, obviously the whole body, is there any other sign of any injury that you determined?
No.
The phrase defensive injuries was mentioned yesterday by a witness. Does that term mean something to you as a forensic pathologist?
Generally, defensive injuries are thought of injuries that can be received usually on the hands and forearms when you're trying to fight somebody off, when you're trying to defend yourself.
And just to be clear, although, and I should clarify, you were at the scene, did you see that there appeared to be blood on the upper, or we'll use your terms here, top of the forearms of Ms. Abarca?
Yes, we would use the term posterior,
Thank you.
so it's posterior forearms, yes.
You don't associate blood drops on the posterior forearms with defensive injuries?
No.
Other than those, after that had been removed or wiped away, did you see any other signs of defensive injuries to her hands, fingers, palms, forearms?
No.
We won't go through every internal organ, but you said you typically remove the internal organs, examine those for any evidence that may be linked to or related to a cause of death. Did that happen in this case? Did you remove her organs?
Yes.
Did you find anything in any of her internal organs or in the internal examination of her body that you thought was contributory in any way toward Ms. Abarca's death?
Only the injuries to the brain.
Well, so from the shoulders down, nothing that contributed to her death.
Correct.
Let's now turn our attention to, obviously, the gunshot wound. Describe, first of all, where it was located and what your initial impressions were of the gunshot wound to her forehead.
The gunshot wound was located on the top of her forehead, pretty much in the middle of the body. It was a contact gunshot wound, which we could determine based on some of the characteristics of the wound. We then recovered the bullet from the soft tissue of the back of the neck.
You've got 3 photos that you have selected that you think would help in your explanation of your findings to the jury. Is that correct?
Correct.
Let's also clarify, staff investigators who work for the Forensic Science Center, your staff, would have taken photos at the time of the autopsy?
Yes.
Also, is it fair to say a CSI crime scene investigator employed by the Wichita Police Department was also present during the autopsy, taking photos and collecting evidence? Accurate?
Accurate.
And from all of the photos taken by those various individuals, you've culled it down to just 3?
Yes.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor? You may. Start with brief description, State's Exhibit 114. What are we seeing there generally?
Are we
Not yet.
So we're seeing an identification shot of Ms. Abarca, seeing her face, and we can also see the gunshot wound on her forehead.
Is that the condition that Ms. Abarca's upper shoulders to the top of her head appeared to you as you found her at the time of the autopsy on the 18th of November, 2016?
In that particular picture, we've cleaned the body off, so any kind of blood or anything like that has been removed.
With that caveat then, with that clarification, is this the condition of the body after it had been cleaned?
Yes.
Your Honor, for identification purposes, what are we talking
That was 114.
about? Thank you.
115, what's that a photograph of?
115 is a close-up of the gunshot wound, demonstrating the characteristics of the wound.
More of a close-up of the photo, of the injury.
Yes.
And then 116 is a photo of?
We're looking at the back of Ms. Abarca's neck, and we see a very faint bruise, which we have a pointer pointing to. In that particular case, when I incised the skin, the bullet was within the soft tissue underneath that area.
Literally pointing to where you recovered the bullet.
Yes.
Accurate depiction of what you found that day.
Yes.
Move for admission of states 114, 115, and 116.
We object to 115 for some appropriate trial motion and subsequent hearing.
No objection to 114 and 116. 114 and 116 will be admitted. The objection on 115 is noted to overrule all of this 115.
Go ahead and move to publish, Your Honor.
Show the jury.
Starting with 114. We've got it up here, over your shoulder, sorry. Turn to the side to utilize the screen, but what is it that we're, tell you what, I'll show you this.
I can stand up.
Well, court permission.
Your Honor, may I rise?
Sure. Please do so, but don't you explain the photograph.
Okay, so this is a picture of Ms. Abarca, as I mentioned earlier. It's an identification shot after we cleaned the body up, and we can see that gunshot wound of her forehead right here.
I'm going to ask you the shape of the photo, and we'll talk in more detail here momentarily, but the shape of the injury, does that mean anything?
Yes, so what we're seeing here is what we call stellate laceration. Stellate means star-like, so like a sunburst coming out of the middle. So we have the gunshot, the defect in the skin right here in the middle, and then these lacerations extending out from that wound. That's indicative of a contact wound. Basically what happens is when the muzzle's pressed against the skin, the escaping gases go under the skin, and that pressure basically tears the skin, causing these lacerations.
I'm going to ask a couple of clarifying questions. I think everybody knows, but you say the muzzle is pressed against the skin. You're talking about the muzzle or the opening of the barrel of a gun. Accurate?
Yes.
And you're saying that that star-shaped or stellate?
Stellate.
Stellate, excuse me. Stellate, star-shaped pattern in the skin where the skin tears is indicative of a contact wound. I want to clarify what that means. Contact meaning the muzzle of the barrel is touching, pressed against the skin. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
All right. Next picture, please. 115.
Okay, so here we've got a closer up view of that wound. As I mentioned, we have the central defect in the skin. We have those stellate, star-like lacerations extending out from that wound. And we can see here, basically on the left half of the screen, which would be from the right side of her forehead, the top of the forehead, to the left side of her forehead, this ring of soot. Basically this pattern, is only seeing it on this side of the wound. This pattern is consistent with a contact wound that is not completely against the skin. There's actually a small gap on the upper area here, which allows some of the gases to escape and deposit the soot here.
Clarify. You've got these two stellate, star-shaped tears. Fair to say they essentially point down toward maybe either eye or toward the lower part of Ms. Abarca's face. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in this photo, which was very difficult to see in the previous photo, you can now see two more tears, stellate tears in the skin pointing up, maybe toward the top of her skull. Accurate?
Yes.
Doctors sometimes refer to injuries using the point of reference of like a clock face. Is that something you guys do?
Yes.
Because this is a side picture, fair to say we're looking at the side of her face. Her eyes would be down below here. If we superimposed a clock face here, would 12 o'clock be toward the, what do you call this here? This is a identifying marker. If 12 o'clock is toward the number 3 or the number 6 in this identifying marker, 6 o'clock then would be down toward her nose. Accurate?
That's correct.
Are you saying that from this, say, 9 o'clock half circle to 3 o'clock, we're seeing, what is this dark material?
That is soot.
Soot. Soot coming from,
From the gun, from the discharge of the firearm.
when you have some, I'm gathering as a forensic pathology, you've got to have a working knowledge of how guns function.
Yes.
When a gun is discharged, the soot often come out of the barrel.
Yes.
And again, because we see nothing from 3 o'clock to back to 9 in terms of soot, I mean, it's very clean, that tells you what?
Basically that on that side where the muzzle is pressed against the skin, there's a firm contact that's not allowing the gases to escape.
Okay. Have a seat again, if you would. Somebody's forehead or upper part of their skull isn't exactly a flat surface like a tabletop. Fair?
Fair.
Obvious. So, if just taking a styrofoam cup from council table here, you know, that's the opening of a barrel of a gun. It's not going to fit neatly against a flat surface because the forehead's not a flat surface. Fair statement?
Yes.
Medically, can you draw any conclusions about why that barrel was lifted up a little bit and not flat against her skull? Is that because she leaned back, seeing it coming? Is that, or is it just too hard to say?
There would be no way to know.
Could just be the curvature of the skull.
Yes.
Next photo, please. This is, for the record, 116. The one we just talked about was 115. 116, you indicated a moment ago as you were identifying these that a pointer had been affixed or had been placed into the photograph. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you show us what you mean?
This is the white pointer right here.
Little
Pointing to this region on the back of the right side of her neck.
little plastic pointer just to be a point of reference, literally, for subsequent analysis.
Yeah, basically to demonstrate on the picture when we're reviewing it, exactly what the area of interest is.
And why has that white pointer been affixed, and what's it showing us?
You can see in this area of the back of the right side of her neck, it's a very faint bruised contusion. And in that area is where, when I cut into the skin, in the soft tissue just below that is where we recovered the bullet.
The bullet was then collected as evidence
Yes.
so that it could be examined later by the ballistic expert. Accurate?
Yes.
And just for point of reference later, this would be her, we're looking at her face down, so this is her right ear. Is that correct?
This is the right ear here.
And just, I'll use common words, below the right ear
Yes.
and a little bit to the center, the center line of her neck. Is that correct?
Yes.
Couple inches or maybe an inch and a half?
Approximately. I don't recall.
All right, thank you. That injury to her forehead, consciousness, how would consciousness have been affected?
With an injury like this, she would have been unconscious pretty much instantly.
this is not something is this, withdraw that question. In terms of death, is there any way to say how long it would have taken for her to die after an injury like this?
No, but it would have been rapid.
In terms of if I use a term trajectory, meaning the path of the bullet, you've shown us the injury went into her center of her forehead, and the bullet was found down below her right ear. Is that indicative of a path of travel for the bullet?
Path of travel, yes. The bullet went through the skull and through the brain to become embedded in the soft tissue of the back side of the right side of the neck. As far as trajectory goes, it was from her front to back, her left to right, and downwards.
And again, a contact or nearly complete contact wound.
Yeah, it was a contact wound.
You got pages of report here. The respiratory system, the liver and I'll never say that right,
Biliary.
sorry, thank you, system. None of these cardiovascular, none of these were contributory to death. She was otherwise healthy.
Yes.
Was a sample of her blood collected for the possibility of subsequent analysis?
Yes, it was.
You did mention toxicology earlier in your testimony, but that is sometimes important, might contribute to your analysis. In this particular case, was toxicology run on the blood collected?
It was run on blood as well as urine.
Any signs of any medication, drugs of abuse, drugs that she could have been prescribed, anything in her system?
No.
So last question, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, within the field of forensic pathology, have you reached an opinion as to the cause and manner of death in this instance?
Yes, I have.
As to the cause
Cause of death was a gunshot wound of the head.
and manner?
Her manner of death was homicide.
Just so we're clear, manner of death is not a legal conclusion in terms, it's for the jury to decide, but what's homicide? What does that mean as opposed to?
That the intentional actions of another person caused her death.
Just a moment. Nothing else, Judge, thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr. Smart.
Yes, sir. Dr. Kipper, how was it that you just defined homicide for us?
That the intentional actions of another individual caused her death.
And you're familiar somewhat with Kansas homicide law as a forensic pathologist who's the deputy coroner.
As far as my determination of cause and manner of death, yes.
Do you occasionally determine that a homicide that you encounter is a homicide because it involves a reckless killing?
It would depend on the situation.
And you occasionally, in your work, determine that a Kansas homicide is also an intentional killing, like you've talked about, or maybe even a premeditated killing. Do you do that?
I don't split those hairs, I just call it a homicide.
Okay. In your report mentions the term homicide, but it doesn't mention premeditation.
Correct.
It doesn't mention the term reckless.
No.
It doesn't mention the term intentional either.
No.
fair to say that you and Dr. Gorel, in your capacities as coroner and deputy coroner, bring to your work your expertise as medical scientists?
Yes.
And the concepts that I'm asking you about are not so much medical as much as legal concepts.
Yes.
Doctor, Mr. Bennett asked with his cup example about the curvature of the head. Did you say that there's no way to know about why there would be the soot on the top half of the injury and not the bottom half?
I believe his question was a specific circumstance that I believe he said her leaning back, and if I could tell if that was the cause, and I said no.
I could give you any litany of potential scenarios, and you wouldn't take a guess about any of those, would you?
That's correct. I would not.
I have one last question for you. You mentioned the term rapid in the context of death would be rapid. Can you give us a little bit more detail about that so it's not that ambiguous? What are we talking about?
At most minutes, likely less than that.
Instantaneous?
It could be.
Thank you, sir.
You ready? Just to clarify the term homicide in the context of your assessment, this wasn't a suicide,
No.
wasn't a naturally occurring event.
No.
You didn't have any reason to call it undetermined, as if it was unclear what happened.
No.
This is ruled a manner of death is homicide, meaning a gun was put to her head and the trigger was pulled.
Yes.
Nothing else, thank you.
Dr. Kipper, thank you, sir. Just step down and excuse.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Some swear to testimony about the case now hearing from the hearing, and nothing but the truth,
Thank you. Sí.
Yes.
Sí.
Please tell us your name.
Guadalupe Nogueda.
Guadalupe Noguera.
By Lupe.
Sí, Lupe.
Yes, Lupe.
Judge, for the record, Mr. Worthington is present and interpreting for the witness. Ma'am, I want to talk to you about November of 2016. Where were you living at that time?
En la 215 de la Brunswick, apartamento número 1.
At 215 Brunswick, apartment number 1.
Is that here in Wichita?
Sí,
Sedgwick,
Yes.
Sedgwick County, Kansas.
sí.
Yes.
Who did you live with at that time?
Vivía con mi hija y Manuel.
I lived with my daughter and Manuel.
And what was your daughter's name?
Laura Orquídea Abarca Nogueda.
Laura Orquídea Abarca Noguera.
In November, on November 11th, in fact, was there an addition to the household?
Sí,
Yes.
Who else joined your home?
Sofía Victoria González.
Sofia Victoria Gonzalez.
And who is Sofia Victoria Gonzalez?
Mi nieta.
My granddaughter.
Whose child?
De Manuel y de Laura.
Manuel and Laura's.
Your daughter and her fiance.
Sí.
Yes.
When Sophia was born, did you take time off of work to help bring
Sí.
bring the
Sí.
baby home?
Sí.
Yes, yes, yes.
What about Manuel, her fiance?
Una persona muy buena gente.
Oh, he's great people.
Objection. Not responsive.
I'm not exactly sure what the question was, if it was a response to the question, rephrase the question. if you can.
Yes, sir. My question was, what about Manuel? Did he take time off from work as well
¿Cuándo?
When?
when the baby was born?
Sí.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the 17th day of November,
De nacimiento.
which was a Thursday, I
The
believe,
birth of
Oh,
the
de
child?
la muerte.
Oh, the death.
the day. Baby was born on the 11th.
Sí.
Yes.
Perfecto.
Perfect.
6 days later is the 17th,
Sí.
The seventh. Yes.
the day Laura died.
Sí.
Yes.
The day she died was a Thursday.
Sí.
Yes.
Perfecto.
Perfect.
We understood that Manuel went back to work on Wednesday, the day before.
Sí.
Yes.
When did you go back to work?
El jueves.
Thursday.
The day she died.
Sí.
Yes.
Where were you working on the 17th?
En McDonald's.
At McDonald's.
Where at?
De la Duga.
On Dugan.
Out west in the parking lot of the Walmart?
Sí, de la Sam's.
Yes, by Sam's
Sí.
and, yes.
What time did you go to work that day?
De 7 a 3.
From 7 to 3.
7 in the morning
Sí.
till
Yes.
A
3
3 de la
p.m.
tarde, sí.
To 3 in the afternoon, yes.
Sí.
Yes.
We'll talk in a moment about that day. But let's go back to the day before, Wednesday, the 16th. Were you home at the apartment on North Brunswick on Wednesday, the 16th?
Sí. Sí.
Yes, yes.
Correcto.
Who are you with? Well, was Laura there as well?
Sí.
Yes.
Sophia?
Sí.
Yes.
Had Manuel gone to work?
Manuel trabajó.
Manuel worked.
And you were there with your daughter and granddaughter?
Sí.
Yes.
At some point, did a friend of Laura's come to the apartment?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you see that friend in the courtroom here today?
Sí, es ella.
Yes, that's her.
Ella.
Her.
Could you please tell us what color clothing she's wearing?
¿Color verde o...?
It's a green color or
Es-
it's green?
This woman immediately.
Sí.
Yes.
Ella, perfecta.
She. Perfect.
For the record, witnesses identified the defendant, Ms. Sesmas. This woman came to the apartment on Brunswick.
Sí.
Yes.
What did you know her as? What was her name to you?
Yesenia.
Yesenia?
Jessica.
Or Jessica?
Yesenia.
Yesenia, yes.
She had did you sometimes call her something shorter?
¿Cómo?
Sorry?
Bad question. Yessie.
Jessie.
Yessie.
Jessie.
Jessie.
Is that a name you knew her by?
Sí.
Yes.
Así me nombraba mi hija. Jessie.
That's how I named her to my daughter, Jessie.
Was that the first time you had ever met the defendant?
No.
No.
When had you seen her before?
En una fiesta de mi hija y en el trabajo de mi hija.
At a party of my daughters and at my daughter's work.
How do you believe your daughter knew this woman?
¿Cómo cree usted que sabía, que conocía a su hija, esta señora?
¿Cómo que?
How do I believe what?
How did they know each other, Laura and the defendant?
Laura y la acusada.
Trabajaban juntas en Logan.
They worked together at Logan's.
Ahí la conoció mi hija.
That's where my daughter met her.
Logan's Steakhouse?
Logan's Steakhouse?
En la Maze y la 21st.
At Mays and 21st.
A restaurant.
Un restaurante.
Sí,
Yes.
perfecto.
Perfect.
How long do you think that had they known one another?
¿Cuánto tiempo se le figura que se habrán conocido?
Como 8 años.
About 8
aproximadamente.
years, approximately.
Aproximadamente.
About 8 years, approximately.
To clarify, your daughter was not working at Logan's Steakhouse when she was killed.
Su hija ya no trabajaba en la Logan's cuando falleció.
Sí, ya no trabajaba.
Yes, she did not work there then.
This is a previous job.
Así que fue un trabajo anterior.
Sí,
Yes.
correcto.
Correct.
So it's you and Laura and Sophia in the apartment when the defendant comes to the apartment, is that correct?
Sí, correcto.
Yes,
How
correct.
did- I'm sorry, Jeff. How did you know there was someone there?
¿Cómo supo que había llegado alguien allá?
¿Cómo supo quién?
How did who find out?
How did you know that the defendant was there? Did she knock on the door, ring the bell?
Estaba la acusada, ella tocó la puerta.
Yo le abrí. Ella tocó la puerta y yo le abrí.
I opened the door. She knocked on the
Yo
door
le
and I
abrí.
opened it. I opened it for her.
When you opened the door,
Cuando usted se la abrió,
Ella como que se sorprendió cuando me vio a mí.
she was like surprised when she saw me.
Dice, no ha cambiado nada, usted sigue igual. Fueron
She says,
palabras de ella.
You haven't changed a bit. You're the same as that always. Those were
A mí
her
me
words.
dijo.
She told me that.
you said surprised. The defendant seemed surprised to see you. Why do you think that?
¿Por qué cree que fue así?
Pues yo pienso que pensó que mi hija iba a estar sola
Well, I think that she thought that my daughter was
y me vio que yo estaba con mi hija.
going to be alone, and then she saw that I was there with my daughter.
But the look of surprise, was that in her face, or why do you think that?
En la,
La mirada de sorpresa, eso estuvo en su cara.
sí, en su cara.
In her, yes,
Sí.
yes, in her face.
Did the defendant say where she had been coming from, where she had just left?
Precisaba de dónde había venido, de dónde acababa de salir.
La acusada.
The defendant?
Correct.
Correct.
¿Cómo? A ver, repíteme nomás.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Did she say where she'd just been?
Ella comentó dónde acababa de haber estado.
Sí, platicaron con mi hija como 40 minutos.
Yes, they chatted with my daughter for about 40 minutes.
When she arrived, did she say, I've just been to the store, I've just been, did she say? Do you
Cuando
remember?
llegó, ella dijo, acabo de ir a la tienda, acabo de venir.
Que venía del gimnasio.
That she'd
O
come-
que iba al gimnasio.
That she'd come from the gym or that she was going to the gym.
The gym,
El gimnasio.
Sí,
Yes,
like a place you go work out.
donde uno va para hacer ejercicio.
sí.
Yes,
Vengo del gimnasio.
I just came from the gym.
They, she stayed for 30 or 40 minutes, you said?
Duró 30, 40 minutos.
40 minutos.
40 minutes.
Tengo todo presente lo que hablamos.
I
O lo que habló con mi hija.
remember everything we spoke about or what she spoke about with my daughter.
Talk about, well, let's just go ahead and talk about that now.
Hablemos eso pues.
What did they talk about?
¿De qué hablar?
Que ella acababa de venir de la corte porque su hijo
That she had just inconvenientes que quisiera hacer calle.
Hold off on responding to the answer, Mr. Worthington. Objection sustained. Rephrase the question, please.
Yes, sir.
Vuelvas a decir la pregunta.
Did they talk about the baby?
Hablaron ellos de la bebé.
Pues habló del dolor de parto de hijo, que ella tuvo sus hijos con dolor de parto, hablamos con Laura,
They
estábamos,
spoke about the delivery pains, the labor for her son,
que ella quería cambiarse allí a los departamentos,
that she wanted to move to the
que andaba
apartments,
buscando un departamento para cambiarse. Mi hija dijo que le iba a dar un ticket, teléfono.
that she was looking for an apartment upstairs, and my daughter said she'd get her a ticket or a telephone number.
So, Ms. Sesmas was talking about labor pains she had during the delivery of her son. You mentioned the son.
Sí, que ella, sí, de sus dos hijos, sí.
Yes, that she had,
Estábamos
yes.
comentando nosotros, sí.
Of her two sons, yes, we were talking about that. Mhm.
She also asked or indicated, the defendant did, she might want to live in that same apartment complex.
Que a lo mejor le daban ganas de vivir en los mismos departamentos.
Sí, arriba quería vivir, que
Yes,
si no había un departamento solo.
Upstairs, she wanted to live there. She was asking if there was an open apartment.
Did you ever ask about the safety of the neighborhood?
Jamás llegó a mencionar la seguridad del vecindario.
No.
No.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask to approach, all this foundation here. Guadalupe, were you interviewed by detectives with the Wichita Police Department after your daughter's death?
Yes, from the police, yes.
Sí.
And was there a Spanish-speaking officer there helping translate for the detective?
Sí. No, Michael habla un poquito de español.
Yes. No, Michael speaks a little bit of Spanish.
And were you able to answer questions of the detective with the help of this Spanish-speaking officer?
Respondí las preguntas del detective con la ayuda de oficial de habla hispana.
Pues sí, sí,
Well-
sí.
Yes, 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 yes.
Ujú.
Mhm.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to approach the witness and show her a transcript of this for counsel's sake. This is interview with Detective Balthazar Linehan as the translator, 9:29 hours.
Do you have an available copy?
Tiene una copia del
Page number, this line.
21.
Thank you, Judge.
I'm going to move to approach the witness, but this has been translated into English for the benefit of counsel. I'm going to ask if Mr. Worthington would read silently, quietly to, with a refresher recollection and see if it's something I ask her to read. With permission. Thank you.
Muy bien, y usted dijo, no, era simple que quería mudarse, y mi hija le dijo, ella dijo, parece que el vecino se va a mudar. Entonces viene la tarjeta, pero ¿está seguro aquí? Respuesta, sí. Entonces usted dijo, sí, ella dijo, está seguro aquí. Mi hija le responde que sí, está seguro.
Sí.
Nunca ha pasado a nosotros.
Sí.
Pero ella dijo, pero hay seguridad,
Sí.
aquí estás segura.
Sí.
Y mi hija respondió que sí.
Ujú.
Yes, yes, yes. Mhm.
Guadalupe, you've now had that read back to you
Ya se le ha leído eso.
quiet enough that the jury couldn't hear, but does that help you remember what you said to the detectives after Laura was killed?
Mhm. Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Es un sí?
¿De qué?
About what?
You've now had a chance to refamiliarize yourself with what you said
¿Ha
to the
tenido la
detectives?
oportunidad de recordar lo que usted comentó con los detectives?
Sí,
Yes.
sí recuerdo poco.
Yes, 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 I'm remembering a little.
Does that help you remember
Sí,
¿Eso
the
le ayuda a
conversation
recordar
you heard between the
la
defendant
plática
and
que
Laura?
usted escuchó entre la acusada y Laura?
sí.
Yes, yes.
So what my question is, did the defendant say anything to Laura about the security, the safety of the apartment complex?
Seguridad. Si uno estaba
Sí,
seguro
fíjese
del
que ahorita
apartamento.
ya recuerdo, dice, ¿y es
Yes, you know
seguro
what?
aquí?
I
Dice, ¿es seguro aquí esos departamentos? Sí, yo recuerdo.
I remember that she said that. Is it safe here? Are these apartments safe? Yes, I remember
Sí.
that. Yes, yes, yes.
And specifically, did she ask,
Concretamente, ella
is there security here?
seguridad
Sí.
aquí.
Yes, yes.
Clarify, did the defendant ask Laura, is there security here?
Le preguntó a Laura, ¿hay seguridad aquí?
Sí.
Yes.
The conversation between your daughter and the defendant lasted 40 minutes.
Su hija y la acusada duró 40 minutos.
40 minutos.
40 minutes.
Pleasant conversation?
Una plática amigable.
Was it a pleasant conversation?
Fue una plática amigable.
Sí,
Yes.
At any time, did the defendant say anything about her taking
Cualquier
Sophia?
momento en el cual la acusada mencionó algo de llevarse a Sofía.
no,
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 no.
At any time, did the defendant say,
En cualquier momento.
no, en cualquier
No, not at any time.
no,
Laura, you promised me you would give me Sophia?
Habrá dicho, Laura, usted me prometió que me iba a dar Sofía.
no, no,
No, no.
Subject never came up at all.
El tema nunca se mencionó.
no.
No.
Before the defendant left, was there any discussion between her and Laura about whether or not they would see each other again the next day?
Laura de si uno planificaba en verse al día siguiente.
Es que yo le dije que iba a trabajar,
The thing is, I told her that
sí, y que Laura iba,
I was going to work
sabía que Laura se iba a quedar sola
and that Laura was going to be, well, she knew that Laura was going to be alone.
y agarró ella, se dio la media vuelta y dice, a ver si vengo yo al otro día.
And she kind of stopped, half turned around and said, maybe I'll stop by tomorrow.
To clarify, had you made it clear you were going to be going back to work the next day, the 17th of November?
Hecho constar que iba a volver al trabajo al día siguiente, el 17 de noviembre.
Ella sabía que iba a trabajar.
She knew that I was going to work.
The defendant leaves after the conversation.
La acusada deja del departamento después de platicar.
Do you,
La acusada, ¿qué?
The defendant what?
she left after the
Salió
conversation.
después de la plática.
Sí,
Yes.
Do you see her again the rest of that day, Wednesday, the 16th of November?
Ese día, el día miércoles 16 de noviembre, ¿la vuelve a ver?
no,
No.
You go to work the next morning on Thursday, the 17th.
La mañana siguiente, el jueves 17.
sí.
Yes.
You have to be at work at 7.
Tiene que llegar al trabajo a las 7.
Ujú,
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
¿Es un sí?
ujú.
Mm-hmm.
that's a
Hay que decir de voz alta.
Oh,
Oh,
sí, sí,
yes,
sí.
yes, yes.
Sí, sí.
Brunswick is just north of Ridge and
Está
Maple.
justo al norte de la Ridge y la Maple.
So to get to McDonald's
Okay.
at Sam's parking lot
Poder dar al McDonald's
doesn't take you very long, I don't suppose.
el estacionamiento de la Sam's no dura mucho tiempo de la vuelta, ¿verdad?
No, o sea que mi hija me dejó un recado. en
No.
la-
And I mean, my daughter had left me a
Mi
message.
hija me dejó un recado en la mesa con un dinero
My daughter had left me a
que
little
saliendo del trabajo
note on the table with some money saying
yo le comprara leche.
that when you come back from work, buy me some milk.
Sí,
Yes.
I understand. So before you leave for work that morning, you see the note from Laura.
Así que antes de salir para el trabajo usted esa mañana, usted vio el recado de Laura.
¿cuál recado? O sea, un mensaje. No, no, no.
What, yeah, the
No.
message?
Sí,
No, no.
sí,
Yes,
antes,
yes.
antes de salir al trabajo estaba en la mesa el recado.
Before I left for work,
Y el
that
dinero.
message was on the table and the money.
Okay. What time did you leave to go to work roughly?
¿Y a qué hora salió usted para ir al trabajo, más o menos?
Yo siempre salía a las 6:45.
I would always leave at 6:45
How did you get to work?
¿Cómo llegó usted al trabajo?
En mi carro.
in my car.
You work from 7 to 3?
¿Trabajo de las 7 a las 3?
Is it yes?
¿Es un sí?
Sí,
Yes.
At 3 p.m., you're off of work.
3 de la
Are you going to go buy milk?
Sal del trabajo, en camino a comprar leche.
sí, ahí
Yes.
en el estacionamiento de la Sams.
There, I was at that parking lot at the Sam's.
Sí,
Yes.
Before you could go into the Sam's to buy milk, did you receive a phone call from one of your sons?
Antes de poder entrar en la casa a comprar leche, usted recibió una llamada de uno de sus hijos.
sí, de José.
Yes, from Jose.
And without getting into detail what Jose said,
Sin
Were you-
mencionar lo que le dijo José,
told that Laura was hurt.
se le había dado de entender que Laura estaba lastimada.
Sí, que estaba sangrando Laura.
Yes, that she was bleeding.
Did you go back immediately to the residence on Brunswick?
De inmediato volvió a la residencia en la Brunswick.
Sí, como loco.
Yes, like crazy.
When you arrived, Sophia was gone.
Cuando usted llegó, la Sofía no se encontraba.
No,
No.
I want to clarify my question. Was Sophia there?
¿Estaba Sofía presente?
allá en el apartamento.
There at the apartment?
Correct.
No,
No.
no, ya no estaba Sofía.
No, Sophia was not there then.
She had been that morning when you left for work?
Pero en esa mañana, cuando usted fue para el trabajo, sí estuvo.
Sí,
Yes.
When was the next time you saw Sophia?
¿Y cuándo fue la siguiente ocasión en la cual llegó a ver a Sofía?
la última vez.
The last time?
You went to work that morning, Sophia was home.
Esa mañana vio a Sofía.
Sí,
Yes.
You come back from work,
Vuelve.
Laura is injured and bleeding.
Laura está lesionada.
Sophia is gone.
Sofía está ida.
pero ya Sofía no estaba en el
But
apartamento.
Sophia wasn't at the apartment then.
Was not.
No,
Correcto que no.
no
No.
estaba ya.
She was not there.
When's the next time you saw
Entonces,
Sophia?
¿para cuándo la volvió a ver a Sofía?
Cuando la entregó el FBI.
When the FBI delivered her.
Couple final questions.
Un par de últimas preguntas.
Leading up to, before Sophia was born,
Antes del nacimiento,
did your family, were you getting ready for Sophia's arrival?
su familia pues estuvieron preparándose para la llegada de Sofía.
Hey,
Yes.
What sort of preparations were being made?
¿Qué tipo de preparación se hacía?
pañales, ropa,
Diapers, clothes,
cuna,
crib,
todo.
everything.
Families, friends of women who are pregnant sometimes have what's called a baby shower. Shower them with gifts.
Mujeres embarazadas que
Did that happen for Laura?
le dan regalos.
Sí.
¿Eso le pasó para Laura?
Sí,
Yes, yes.
sí, una amiga le hizo su baby shower.
Yes, a girlfriend of hers did the baby shower for
Sí.
her. Yes.
Did you attend?
¿Usted asistió?
Sí,
Yes.
correcto.
Correct.
And did she bring these gifts home and set up a home ready for a child?
Entonces ella usó de esos regalos para preparar el hogar para la niña.
Sí, parte de eso y parte de que ella compró,
Yes, part from that and part
que
from
le
what,
regalaron en su trabajo también. Muchas amigas le regalaron
part from
ropa.
what she bought as well. She also got some gifts from work. A lot of her work friends had gifted her some clothing.
So friends, pardon me, friends and family
Así que amigas,
gave her a shower,
familia,
friends from work gave her gifts,
trabajo le dieron.
and you're saying
Sí, correcto.
Yes, correct.
and she also bought things for
Y
herself,
aparte
for her baby.
también compró
Tú,
cosas para ella.
mucho.
Oh, a
Ella
lot.
compró, demasiado.
She bought, way too much.
Had she waited a while for this baby?
Ella ya esperaba con anhelo.
Oh, con mucho amor a su hija. Con mucho amor,
With
su
so much
primera hija.
love for her daughter, her first daughter.
Era una locura de Laura.
She was
Yo
crazy
viví
about her.
Yo viví los 9 meses.
I saw her during those 9 months.
At any point from the time Laura found out she was pregnant till the day she brought Sophia home, till the day she died, did Laura ever express to you a desire to give her baby to another woman to be raised as that woman's child?
¿Cómo cree que va a ser eso mi hija? Si mi hija la preparó, se preparó, le compró un seguro de vida a su hija,
No.
le daba pecho. ¿Cómo es
How could you
posible?
believe?
¿Cómo es posible eso?
How could you believe my daughter could do that? She bought a life insurance policy for her daughter. She breastfed her. How would that even be possible?
Le daba pecho, ¿cómo?
Hold on.
Mr. Worthington, no further on the answer. Mr. Smart,
It's not responsive to your question.
sustained. Next question, please. Mr. Van.
Yes, sir. Just one moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Last question. When you saw, Lupe, when you saw the defendant at the home, at your apartment, did you later tell police what you thought she had been driving?
¿Usted luego comentó a la policía qué tipo de muebles se le figuraba que manejaba?
No.
No.
It's been a long morning. Do you remember a truck?
Una mañana larga. ¿Usted recuerda una camioneta?
Negra.
Black.
Sí.
Yes.
Bonita la camioneta. Y yo le pregunté a mi hija,
A really nice truck. And
¿de quién es esa camioneta?
I'd asked my daughter, whose
Cuando
truck?
yo salí, ella se dio cuenta que yo salí cuando estaban platicando.
Whose truck is that? She realized that I had come out while they were chatting.
Saw a very nice black truck.
¿Usted vio una camioneta
Sí.
negra muy linda?
Sí,
Yes, yes.
And my truck, pickup truck with a bed.
Y cuando digo camioneta, quiere decir una camioneta con
pica,
caja.
sí, con caja.
Pickup
Sí,
with a
correcto,
bed.
con caja.
Yes, with a bed.
Okay. Lupe, thank you.
Gracias.
I don't have any further questions,
Yo no tengo más preguntas.
but the defense attorney might have some, so give him a moment.
Sí, dame un momentito.
Yes.
Ninguna pregunta, señora.
Ms. Maggetta, thank you very much. You are excused.
Sí.
You can step down.
Gracias.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and take our morning recess at this time. I'll give the jury 20 minutes. Any of those who want to go outside the pressure, otherwise should hand, please be back in the jury room no later than 20 after 11. Please remember the admonition, do not discuss this matter in this case among yourselves or anybody else we have with you. No independent fact finding or research. And that will be recessed. I'll ask everybody to go into the jury room initially, and then Garrett will come and release you. You have to come recess if necessary. We can take care of it. Won't be very long. Does other set advocate need to put on their order and recess?
Nothing stated.
Judge, I understand that the witness's testimony is very emotional for her, and I understand that she's crying and tearful now. There was some quiet crying yesterday from a member of the gallery, and I understand that, but at some point it is possibly going to get disruptive enough to invite me to object.
I just invited Mr. Smart to let me know if he feels that's happening. I can quietly ask family members to leave. I would only add to the record that they've been very, I'm very close to them physically here in the courtroom, and I hear a little bit of quiet crying from time to time. but
I've heard a little bit of sobbing from the family members. They're in the farthest part of the spectator area from the jury box. Quite honestly, I've heard louder crying from the jury box. We have autopsy photos. It's to be expected the family members are going to be displaying emotion during that time. If it gets pronounced, I'll bear that in mind and take appropriate action at this time, but I think they're perfectly understandable in what their emotions are. The jury understands that, and I'm going to read anything into that, we know the jury's feeling also.
Judge, I observed the same thing about the jury as early as openings yesterday. I think Ms. Tyrell and maybe one of the other jurors were crying, and I understand, but at some point, you may have to ask for a brief recess for people to have the time that they need.
I understand, and I'll monitor that, and certainly if either council thinks it's appropriate to raise it in advance of mine raising it, please do so.
Thank you.
We'll be in recess if everybody